Hey guys. So what is the picture that comes to your mind when you think of a missionary? For me, growing up at least, not necessarily entirely now, but growing up, my picture of a missionary was somebody who lived in a hard context, like a third world country or something like that. They went overseas to share the gospel, and usually it involved a tribe or an unreached people group of some kind. And slowly God has kind of broadened that view, but the truth is that I actually, I just have a very narrow view of what a missionary is up until recently, which I still probably do, but God has just been kind of revealing some stuff to my heart. So I want to show you guys a very lame pie chart that I made, and I'm not very technologically advanced, but there it is. And so this is a pie chart of just all of the continents and how, quote, Christian they are. Okay, it's kind of lame, but so the orange is going to represent Christian in the most broadest sense of the word. I mean just nominally Christian by name. And the blue is any kind of other, either well-known religion, random religion, or non-religion. So in North America, we have a lot of nominal Christians, not surprising. South America too, which was kind of surprising to me, but I guess Catholicism is very prevalent over there. Africa is about half. Oceania has quite a bit, which I was honestly surprised, and that's super cool that Australia especially, I've read, is doing very well. Asia, not surprising, not very many Christians at all. And Europe, also not surprising, there are quite a few of Christians. So the top few are like South America, North America, and Europe. This other chart we're going to focus in on the gray. So the gray is the actual evangelical Christians, not just the nominal Christians. And so in North America, we have really like very few from the people that claim to be Christians. We're known as a Christian nation in North America already. And not surprising that a lot fewer actually are Christians. South America, even fewer. Not surprising too. Africa, about half of the people that claim that they're Christians are actual evangelical Christians. Oceania, Australia especially, kind of similar to North America in that. Asia, again, not surprising. Even fewer than the people that claim to be Christians are Christians. Asia is part of the 1040 window. That's not surprising at all. And Europe, we're going to focus in on this. So if you look at this, Europe is actually tons of people claim to be Christians. We know that. Like Europe, we think of it, it's kind of a starting point of Christianity, I guess. But the truth is that Europe is actually incredibly nominal in Christianity, but very, very few actually believe and are evangelical Christians. And that number is actually less than any in any of the other continents. 2.9% are evangelical Christians out of the 71.3%. And that is the lowest number, which I don't know if numbers mean tons to you, but that is that is the lowest number. The actual number of evangelicals in Europe mirrors those of the least reached continents, or least reached contexts in the 1040 window. And we usually associate the unreached with the 1040 window, not with the historic home of Christendom, but this is a faulty assumption. So I think really to understand a little bit more about Europe, we have to do a little bit of a history lesson. So since the beginning of the spread of the gospel in Acts, Europe has been a big part of that. Europe was one of the first to get the gospel. We have that recorded in Acts of it reaching Rome, Athens, Philippi, just to name a few. And from there, Christianity started to spread throughout Europe. In 64 AD, Roman Emperor Nero kind of started a lot of persecution, caused the church to be forced underground. In 313, Roman Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity throughout the Roman Empire, even though it fell about 100 years later. The Bishop of Rome claimed to be the head of the church, and from then the church was divided into Roman Catholic and Orthodox. And so we kind of see Christianity slowly become, during the Middle Ages, this control, this part of the government. Christianity was part of the government. The popes had significant power, but were often controlled by the government, or they controlled the government. They were the government in a lot of cases. But they also used and abused their power. So the Crusades started in the 11th and 12th centuries, where the church sent out people to reclaim the Holy Land. And this was a very bloody, violent, and ruthless affair. Should not have happened. They conquered a lot of land for Europe and forced Christianity on pagans. The Inquisition began in the 12th century, and the Catholic Church tried to root out any heresy they found, and they severely punished non-Catholic Christian religions. During the Middle Ages, people were tortured, burned at the stake, and killed for not complying with the Holy Church. So it was crazy stuff during the Middle Ages. We know quite a bit about that. The Protestant Reformation came in the 15th century, and that's kind of where what we would consider modern Christianity today came from there, with Martin Luther when he nailed the 95 Theses. And the history of Europe has just been one of just violence, bloodshed, power trips. And it is affecting even up till now. Even recently, there was a conflict between Protestants and Catholics in Ireland in the 60s. And that's recent, and they're just getting over that now. They're just recovering from that now. And so despite what they might think, the truth is that Europe is still a mission field, because they are so far past Christianity. As I've been doing research for this project, I've just been realizing that they are so far past Christianity. They're over it. They don't really want much to do with it. And so I was talking to a missionary about, she's a missionary in Spain, in Madrid, and they've been in Europe for a while. They just recently got to Spain, but they've been in Europe for a while. They were in Belgium for a while. And she was just telling me some of the things that she's seen. We don't think of Europe as a mission field. When I think of Europe, it's a vacation spot, honestly. That's like where I really want to go. It'd be super cool. All of the history. I love history. All of that kind of stuff. There's so many just like rich history, like just old things, old buildings, old churches, whatever. But the truth is that a lot of those churches aren't actually being used. She said in some towns there's like potentially, hopefully, one church. There's a lot of Catholic or cathedrals and stuff like that all around, but they aren't actually being used. That's why they're tourist attractions, because they can't, because they're not being used. So you can actually go in and just tour them and stuff like that, because they're not actually being used. Even though we consider it Christian, there really are very, very few churches. And the more I research it, the more I talk to this missionary, the more I just pray about it. Honestly, God has just been revealing that there are so few churches. There's so little even understanding of what true Christianity is. She said that because of this history, even though it was 600 years ago, 800 years ago, even 400 years ago, that all of this stuff happened, all of this bad stuff that gave Christianity a bad rep. But the truth is that even if they don't realize it, that's still affecting them. Our history, even hundreds of years ago, still affects who we are today. And that's really been affecting their view of Christianity. They associate Jesus with just all of this abuse of power, and abuse sometimes, like actual abuse. And they associate that with Christianity, with Jesus, and they want nothing to do with him, which honestly makes sense. It makes sense that this view that they have of him would just be something that absolutely they want nothing to do with. She said that her 6-year-old was in school and her 6-year-old was mocked because she believed in God by other 6-year-olds. Like, they're not even adults. They don't have opinions. They don't know what they believe. That they do. But, they're 6 and they're mocking her for believing in God. Like, Europe is just so far past Christianity. They want nothing to do with God, and of course there are some churches there and there are missionaries there, but the truth is that we usually in mission circles, we are not exposed to Christianity. It's not really something that's talked about tons. I've noticed that. I haven't really ever considered Europe as a mission field because that's a place where I'd vacation. Like, I'd love to. I haven't. I have. That's a place where I'd love to vacation, and that's not, to me it's like, oh, well, it already has the gospel. The gospel has been there for, like, years and years and years and years and years. Like, for forever, since the beginning of Christianity. So why would they need the gospel? It's fine. There is more of a need in Papua New Guinea and in India, just in different places like that, like in the 1040 window. If you've ever looked, there are like these red dot maps that show all of the unreached people groups and stuff. And there are so many, especially in like India and Papua New Guinea, there are so many. And so the need is greater in other places. But what I've been realizing is, who are we to say where the need is greater? Honestly, I think that Europe is a mission field. I think that Europe should be talked about more. I think that we shouldn't limit God to what he can do in other people's lives and in other countries. And I'm not saying, no, don't go to Papua New Guinea, you should go to Europe. I'm not saying any of that kind of stuff, but I'm saying, for me personally, God has just been changing my heart in regards to the fact that he can do so much more than the little box that I put him in. He is doing so much in the world, and I want to know and I want to be involved in that. And so that's all that I have, and I really think that we should just reconsider missions. We should reconsider where our prejudices lie, because the truth is that if missions is taking the gospel where it needs to go, Europe is a part of that. Europe needs the gospel. It needs missionaries. It needs discipleship, especially, because it has the gospel, but people need to understand what the gospel actually is and what it means.